All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Business Bootcamp. I think this is our third time doing this event, and I'm super excited because well, I haven't done as many events this year, and besides like the RD to B Summit that's in August, Business Bootcamp is our second most popular event. So I think we had over 400 people register for the recording, and then I know many of you are here live, and I always appreciate the live audience because then we can interact, you can ask questions, and really get the most out of today. So I think some of you have already started introducing yourselves. So we have people from all over the country. Sometimes we have some international students popping in too, but very excited to have you all here. As a quick introduction, my name is Jenny Westerkamp. I am founder of All Access Dietetics. I started my entrepreneurial journey officially, I guess, with this company when I was 21 years old. I was a future dietitian at University of Illinois and decided there needed to be more support for the future dietitian community. Been helping you all get through the crazy stressful process of admissions, the admissions and applications process, the RD exam, figuring out what you want to do with your career, and then now really trying to boost your confidence in business skills. We try to really close the gap between, okay, you have this great training, you go to school, you do your coursework, you have your rotations, you do your internship, you do your graduate program, but there's still some things that are missing from the curriculum that I think could really help you in the real world. And especially if you do have entrepreneurial dreams, learning about business, learning about what it's like to be an entrepreneur, business models, the ups and downs, all of those things within the context of dietetics is something that I'm really passionate about sharing and want to share my knowledge of being a dietitian, having multiple businesses as a dietitian, and sharing what I learned and giving you my best advice. Okay, so we will dive in here. The agenda for today is I want to share a background on my entrepreneurial journey, the lessons I learned, then four popular business models that I have personally done in my career, and then our favorite business resources that we have. There's some exciting announcements in here as well for more things that we're offering to the RD to be a new RD community. And then taking that big leap and thinking through just the nitty gritty of the qualities that it takes to be an entrepreneur, how you actually make that first step, the financials around it. So that is what we're going to be covering today. And if there is any additional questions that come up as you're hearing me talk, please do put them in the chat box because I'm able to read everything simultaneously. I'm pretty good at that now. And so would love to just see what the questions are. I am going to drop a bunch of links in here. You might want to just share, like copy them from the chat, but these are going to be like all the links of the resources that I'll be talking about throughout. So just want to have them here, and then I'll be dropping them in as we talk about them as well. All right, so let's get into this journey. How about this flashback picture of me, please? Do we appreciate? First of all, the company All Access Dietetics was called All Access Internships when I first started. This is at Fincy. This is my first booth I ever had. I think it's 2011. I had started the company in 2008 into 2009, but this was the first time that I had a booth at Fincy, which was very exciting for me. You could see from my smile and my cheesy face. But that was my first ebook that I then made printed copies for called Getting Matched, a guide for dietetic students. And we had just started coaching. You could see the little like sign on the table for application coaching. We had just launched that like 2 years into starting the company. And then you can see the website there as well, which was not that cute. However, at least it was a working website and super fun. So that's a little blast from the past. But to rewind a little bit further back, I like to share this story about kind of how I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and maybe some of you could resonate with this. I was 10 years old and I was in a small school and, 20 kids in my class. But my mom was really actually entrepreneurial in that she always did craft shows, if you know what those are. So like made crafts and sold them at local churches or community centers around our hometown. And so she taught me how to make scrunchies. And this is back in the 90s when they were really cool. They came back a little bit. We'll get more into that in a second. But I was so fascinated by this idea of like creating something really awesome, something that people loved, people paying me for it, and really loving making that money, right? Like selling something that I made, making that money, and just getting a real great experience from that. And so when I knew, though, this is where things got interesting, is because I remember completely selling to my whole grade of like 12 girls that were in my class. And then I started selling to like the grade above me, the girls in those classes, the grade below me. But then sales started to slow down. And I remember thinking, how am I going to keep making money when I've saturated my market? Like, this is me at 10 years old, right? I just was like excited. You know, if you run a lemonade stand, you're like, oh, I made $3, whatever. Well, I remember the exact moment where I was like, I'm going to figure this out. And I decided the next day at school, my marketing idea was to wear two scrunchies at the same time. So I took two scrunchies, I intertwined them together and put them in my hair. And it was like this new way of doing a scrunchie where you had to get like two matching colors. And then it was like a double scrunchie look. My sales doubled. So I was able to sell again to everyone in my class. And I was like, I am made for this. Like I really just remember it. Like I specifically remember then having to write a paper about like what do you want to be when you grow up? I was like business owner. So it all kind of is something that just really aligns with my personality, who I am, my life experience is up to, that point, like as a kid. And yeah, so if you have a story like that, would love to hear it in the comments. But if, how did you know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur? Was there something that kind of happened to you or some inspiration that you had that said, okay, yeah, I definitely want to have my own business someday? For me, it was scrunchies. So then fast forward, and my real first official business was All Access Dietetics, which, like I said, I founded in 2008 when I was 21 years old. And I actually ran it for, how many years is that? 9 years. And I was doing a whole other career as a sports dietitian, trying to do nutrition coaching on the side, like all the things. I worked for a meal delivery company, a wellness center. Like I did so many things in my first 9 years, but I was trying to run All Access Dietetics on the side. And it was very hard to do that. It was very hard to try to grow this business while I was trying to pay my bills and figure it out. And I almost gave up on this company in 2017. And I remember right in 2017 is when I finally got a larger contract with the Chicago Bulls, which was kind of my dream job. I had worked for the Chicago Blackhawks and as an assistant, the Chicago Cubs in the minor leagues, but they were smaller contracts, definitely not enough to pay my rent. And so then I finally in 2017 got the Chicago Bulls job and that contract, and that covered like my base needs. And so then I was able to actually like get a business coach, an advisor, and like hire someone to help me run All Access Dietetics. And that's what I really needed. So go from 2017 up to present, I was able to grow my team, get advice, and learn more about being a CEO, learning more about financials, and then adding new offerings and having the capacity to do that, because the Chicago Bulls job was seasonal and it was also like part-time. So it actually worked out really well that I had the space, I had the like some financial security there with them covering kind of my rent and food, and then was able to invest back into All Access Dietetics, which was making some revenue and profit, but definitely not enough, and not enough to be like a full-time salary, right? So I needed to grow that business. I added the offerings. So then we had started, in 2017, we had application coaching, which we now call dietetics admissions coaching. And then we added RD exam preparation, which is now called Pass Class. And then we added a virtual summit every year, which is really great, like public relations, PR, marketing, to like make sure people know who we are. And that really helped. And then we added toolkits and courses. I'll talk about a couple today related to business, but we added that. And then we just recently this year added the dietitian coach approach training, which I will talk about, a partnership we have with Well Coaches, which is a healthcare provider coaching psychology training. They train like doctors, nurses, dietitians, physical therapists, all on this coach approach for working with patients one-on-one. So So now we're kind of moving and grooving to where All Access Dietetics is really kind of in its teenage years now, 15 years old, but it took a long time. In the first 9 years, we're not that great, and for various reasons and all of that. But like it took a long time to get it to where it was really, all systems were going. The team had all the people, and I wasn't, burning out, trying to keep it going. I remember in 2017 when I was about to make a decision, like, should I keep going with this or should I just shut it down? I remember I was doing most of the admissions coaching calls, and then I had coaches that would do them as well. But we had so many clients that I remember, like, and I had a full-time job at the time, and was working with the sports teams. And I remember like being at 9 o'clock at night, working with someone in California where it was like 7 p.m. at night, reviewing their personal statement on the phone. We did not use Zoom back then, so it was like over the phone. And I like my eyes were closed. Like as I was talking, like, oh, you should talk more specifically about your short-term goals here and like add this here. And what do you think about the reasons why you want to go there? And my eyes were closed. I was so tired. And that's not a sustainable way to run a business, right? So we want to work hard, but we don't want it to be to the point where it's just sacrificing like sleep and rest and like taking care of yourself. So that's where that point was. And thankfully I did get a contract and kind of got that financial little boost that allowed me to stick with it. And I'm so glad that I did. So that is the story of All Access Dietetics. And then I do want to tell you about a failed business, and I wouldn't really call it a failed business, but just a business that I didn't want to do anymore. And that was, I wanted to bring back the scrunchie business. This was right around the same time of 2017 when I was figuring out, do I keep going with All Access Dietetics or what should I do next? And this was just a quick little experiment, but I wanted to point it out because not all businesses are successful, and you might have a couple, ones that don't work before you get to the one that does. So don't give up. But this is a scrunchie business, and I wanted to try this model of selling tangible products. E-commerce was something that was just not exciting to me in terms of marketing. Like, I really had a hard time like finding passion in that. Of course, I think now it's really different. Like Etsy and Shopify have really like exploded and included a lot of marketing. And then you have TikTok, which is so great for e-commerce marketing. We know so many brands that have exploded using TikTok, but this was 2017, and it was just something like that did not light me up. I didn't have the passion, but I learned some things going through it. I went through the process of understanding shipping and how to build an Etsy shop and a Shopify, but ultimately, did it for 6 months, did this fun photo shoot, which is pictured here, and then shut it down. So that is another business. And then the next business that I did was in 2019. So I'm still running All Access Dietetics. Things are going well. Still doing the Chicago Bulls at this point. And Dietitian Social was my next business. Now, this one I wouldn't necessarily call a failure either. We did have clients, but this was started 3 months before COVID-19 happened. And so I was just getting it up and running. I was getting my clients. We were a social media management company for dietitians. And so I learned about the agency model, how to create statement of work contracts, how to work with clients, how to deliver on what their goals were. And I also hired two amazing people. So the two people that I hired to help this company were actually Emily Merklin, who is now our Chief Marketing Officer for All Access Dietetics, but she was first my assistant for Dietitian Social. And then my second hire was Cass, if you guys remember Cass, who has recently left All Access Dietetics, but she was with us for 3 years. And but she was first working for me with Dietitian Social in 2019. And so you probably would see her like on our reels on TikTok, on Instagram. And then she worked with brand partnerships for us. But that was kind of a win because I brought them over then to All Access Dietetics when I was ready to keep growing that business. So this was a cool model. And there's so much need. And one of the business models we're going to talk about is like this social media management and virtual assisting. But I personally, it was not aligned to me and like how I wanted to have a business, because you do get a choice in like the design, the model, what you want to do day to day, how you like what clients you want to have, what problems you want to have. Like every business has problems. So you kind of want to choose like, okay, what problems do I want to deal with? And so that is my experience with social media management for dietitians. And then I was a consultant kind of this whole time. So I think about this as another kind of chapter that was happening throughout my whole career simultaneously with the businesses. And that is as a consultant, where I would get gigs like working for a wellness center or for a professional or like a meal delivery company. I co-authored a book with the former editor of Men's Fitness magazine. It was called Green Foods for Men. So I experienced the idea of writing a book and trying to market that. And then I did speaking gigs. I would do corporate wellness. I would talk to businesses and try to get individual nutrition coaching clients. Then I also had contracts with professional sports teams. So I, like I said, was Chicago Blackhawks, their assistant nutritionist, and then the Chicago Cubs, I was their minor league nutritionist. And these were like contract positions, seasonal. And then Chicago Bulls, I made it to kind of that head position. I was the top dietitian there. I was the only dietitian there. And I did 5 years at the Chicago Bulls. I did 4 years at the Blackhawks, 2 at the Cubs, and then 5 at the Chicago Bulls. And this picture here is actually when the Chicago Cubs won the World Series. I was the minor league dietitian and kind of like the assistant in the major leagues to the dietitian at the time. Her name was Dawn Jackson Blattner. And so we got World Series rings, which was super cool because I was there in 2016 when they won, and then 2017. So that's the consultant world. And now we fast forward. We did the sports. I retired from professional sports in May 2022. I did 5 years with the Chicago Bulls. Decided to start a new chapter and kind of hang my hat up and retire the jersey for sports. It was actually a very demanding job for being a contract position, and I was just feeling like I wanted to start a new business and I was not going to have time to do that. And I was just grateful to have the experience, but I didn't want to keep going and growing in that role. So I wanted to start a new adventure. And that was with All Access Dietitians. So All Access Dietitians is a multi-specialty private practice. It's virtual. We're in network with insurance, which for those of you that might not know about this, the Affordable Care Act that came out in like 2017 covers diet counseling with dietitians in most PPO plans. So there's some amazing benefits. I didn't even know that as a dietitian, and I have Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance. I have unlimited visits with a dietitian with my plan, and people do not know that. And so I was like, people need to know this. They need to know that this is an unused benefit, that they could have their own personal nutritionist with $0 out of pocket, no deductible requirement. So, and you're seeing a lot of big companies now pop up with this model because they're really trying to push this and help increase prevention within our country. So I'm very excited to be a part of that world. We have a dietitian coach approach, which I will get to a little bit later. There's 9 dietitians on our team. We can work in 19 states based on like licensure laws, and we applied for licensure in a few states. And then there's other like rules and reciprocity and things, or they're non-licensure states where we can practice telehealth. And then coming in 2024, which is so exciting, is a dietitian fellowship for brand new dietitians that we will have. I'm so excited. And there will be some more details, and you can email me for this. But this is going to be a fellowship. I think this is so needed in our field to have a fellowship that will be that bridge, like 9 months or a year long, that's going to be that bridge of like training on how to counsel one-on-one and get a lot of reps so that you feel super confident in your coaching and counseling abilities as a dietitian, giving both the MNT as well as the behavior change and motivational interviewing coaching that I just think you get a little bit of in your training, but not enough to make you really feel confident, and especially not enough, I feel, to be confident in terms of like starting your coaching practice. Like if you earn your private practice on your own, definitely you can, and you just learn as you go for sure. But I just want to create that like year of training that's sort of missing from our curriculum, where we go deeper into that behavior change and like coaching psychology so that you can have better outcomes for your clients. I think that's the key. And we'll get more into that when I go into business models. But yeah, so You heard it here first. Dietitian fellowship coming in 2024, like early 2024 is when I'll have applications open. I'm so, so excited. But yes, so stay tuned for that. Okay, so that's like my journey so far. I do have a podcast, Dear Future Dietitian, and the first episode is goes deeper into like how I got those jobs in sports, deeper into like how I grew All Access Dietetics from 2017 when I was going to give it up. So if you want more details on that actual story, then you can go to episode number 1 of Dear Future Dietitian podcast, which is wherever you listen to podcasts. Now we're going to switch into lessons learned. So lessons learned along the way as an entrepreneur. Love this picture. And I think about it often because you're here, especially at this point in your career. And I'll just say like at any point in your career and in life, no matter what you do, it is the unknown. There's always choices of regret, of unknown, uncertainty that you have to deal with. And one of the kind of biggest lessons I've learned, even as a human, is you have to be able to tolerate the discomfort of the unknown. And you practice that a lot as an entrepreneur, more so than someone that might have a more, quote, stable job, although nothing is totally certain, right? So it just is a little bit more apparent when you're an entrepreneur and you literally have no idea how much money you're going to make, to pay your bills and everything when you're growing a business. But just know either direction you go, it's unknown. And so you kind of choose which unknown you want to tolerate the discomfort of. Okay. And so that's kind of the first lesson. But then I'm going to go into a few lessons here, my top ones, and then a few book recommendations as well. So the first lesson is you have to proactively create relationships. The Success Principles, it's an older book now, but still extremely relevant. The author is Jack Canfield. He wrote the Chicken Soup for the Soul books, which this book has nothing to do with that or doesn't have any flavor of the chicken soup. It's totally different book, but he just really was successful in that arena with his publishing career. But he talked about so much in this book about your relationships and how to build relationships, especially in the field of dietetics. It is so extremely small. I think there's like 90,000 total dietitians in the country. And then when you think about the entrepreneurial ones, I think there's maybe only like 10%, which what is the math on that? 10% of 90,000, like 9,000 dietitians that would be in this business space. So you do want to have those relationships. And this quote of your network is your net worth, thinking about the stronger your network is, the better the opportunities are going to be for you. One suggestion that I have for especially new dietitians, when I was starting out, and I know I get a lot of emails, so I'm going to talk about this in the second lesson, but you want to reach out to people and not be afraid to proactively create that relationship. I also think LinkedIn, Instagram too, but LinkedIn especially can be incredible. I actually use this now in building my group practice. I connect with physicians, therapists in my area. I can filter, I can connect with them. They can accept my connection, and then I can go to their profile, grab their email, and then pitch them an introduction email about myself, about the practice, and try to get on a call with them. And that is working great. I mean, of course, not everyone is responding, and you have to be okay with people not responding to you, but they do, like enough do that I'm on calls, like 5 or 6 new calls a week where I'm meeting new people and telling them about my company. So this next line here is the SW, 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 SW. What that means is some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting. Some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting. This is the mindset you have to have when you are going out and creating relationships. I know students will say to me like, I reached out to 50 dietitians and no one responded to me. Well, we're going to get into the strategy on the next slide, but you have to be okay with that rejection and be putting yourself out there constantly and consistently. So I do the LinkedIn cold reach outs every single week. And I've done that every single week that the practice has been in existence, which is really just since April. So like 9 months, but every single week I'm on LinkedIn reaching out, setting up calls with people that I don't know. And that has helped to grow the practice. And so for you, that might be, again, potential clients or potential referral partners or other dietitians that you want to connect with. They're all out there. They're all available to you. You just have to proactively create those relationships. And then read the book, The Success Principles. It's incredible. I think it's probably on Audible. I'm sure it's on Audible as well. But that will help you with that strategy in terms of how you do that. So you don't feel like you're like, what am I doing? What do I say? The next lesson is be a go-giver. So shifting your focus from getting to giving is not only a nice way to live life and conduct business, but a very profitable way as well. We are in here for business, for profit, otherwise we wouldn't be able to have a business. So you do want to think, what can I give of value that will be of help to this person? So for me with the private practice and talking to physicians that say, they're usually like very excited to know that we exist because they always have a hard time finding dietitians to refer to. So there is that like gift of value there. But I also like to give them like a fact sheet on insurance for diet for like nutrition and dietetics because maybe they want to bring on a dietitian onto their team. And so it's always kind of leading with some value. Like, do you want to add this on? Are you interested in increasing patient outcomes? Hey, you could work with me and refer to me. Or if not, here's like a great resource that could help you make that decision and add someone onto your team and bring it in-house instead of referring externally. So it's about giving that value as well. It's kind of like a goodwill situation, and it doesn't, come off as like salesy or whatever. The other way you can think about this in regular marketing would be like a freebie, right? Or like a lead generator, like something that is of value, like a free ebook, so that you're giving something in exchange for maybe an email, but that's how you then can like continue the conversation with them. But first you've given them value. You also, when you reach out, you offer to give, not get, and then ask yourself, how can you give more value? And that's really a key to marketing. It's like, how can you give something that usually people give away for free? How can you give something away for free that people usually charge for? That is like the world you sort of want to live in. When people might charge for a course, you might give away that course for free. These are very general ideas. Obviously, I would need to talk through someone's exact business model and what that exact offer is, but you're trying to be that go-giver, not that go-getter. And then be strategic with who you connect with and know your bigger picture vision. So the more you know who it is you're trying to, or where you're trying to go, the easier it is to know who is going to help you get there. An example of this is in my sports career, I specifically was trying to meet the like team doctors of the Chicago professional sports teams, the team psychologists. Like that's how I got in to get my positions there, is literally through relationships. That was not on a job board. None of my jobs with the Blackhawks, Cubs, or Bulls were on job boards. They did not post like, hey, we're looking to hire a dietitian. I got the first job through reaching out directly to the Chicago Blackhawks dietitian, and she made me an intern and then hired me. Chicago Cubs, I had had a connection and a relationship already for years with Dawn Jackson Blattner through some professional involvement. So she already knew who I was, and she's like, I want you to do this. And then with the Bulls, I met the team doctor through doing a speaking gig for a physical therapy company that I had been working with, knowing that they had relationships with team doctors for the Chicago Bulls. And I was strategic, and that's how I got all those things. And I gave value to each of those people before they gave me a job. So that I was their intern for the Blackhawks. I was helping with professional development and involvement with the Cubs dietitian, and then I had done the speaking gig. I did get paid for the speaking gig with for the Chicago Bulls team doctor, but then eventually, was able to get in with their executive team. So that is examples of how that works. Your attitude determines your altitude. If you keep waiting for the right time, you are going to keep living the wrong life. This is a very brash quote, so I want to acknowledge that. I think there's a lot of nuance in life, and right and wrong and all this sometimes can backfire, make you think like you're not doing the right thing, and there's this tension. So I want to kind of hold that loosely, but you do want to think, what are the things that I really want, and do I believe that I can have them? So attitude determines your altitude. So your attitude around what you think about yourself, how much you trust yourself is going to be really important in this entrepreneurial journey. So you want to think about things like reframing your thoughts around things, like questioning your thoughts, the thoughts that are trying to keep you safe, right? And not take those scary risks. You want to think about your attitude, again, with the self-talk. Affirmations are amazing, and gratitude. You've probably heard this before. This is not new, but these things work, and these are really important if you are consistent with them. So for example, I have an email that is sent to me every day that lists out 31 affirmations, and then whatever day it is the day that I read that affirmation. So I have the same 31, and then the seventh day of the month I read number 7, and I just take the time, I read it out loud, and that's it, and I move on. And it really helps. It's just that quick repatterning of your brain into affirming something about yourself and changing your patterns of self-talk. So, and that email comes in. I do it because I always look at emails. And so having that in the mix, kind of like stacking it in with all my other emails, is a great way that I actually do it. And I open it up and I read it. And what I use for that is Boomerang. It's an extension that you can add to your Gmail. And then gratitude as well, and just focusing on that versus the problems is a good shift. And then finally, yeah, that book, You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero, is pretty great. And she also has one, You Are a Badass at Making Money, which can be really helpful to work on your money relationship. Ready, aim, fire. I like that saying. We use that as like our mantra for All Access Dietetics for a very long time, because we were a small team and we were like, okay, ready, fire, aim, because instead of ready, aim, fire, it was ready, fire, aim, because we would get feedback if we fired sooner, right? We would kind of see where it landed. And so that idea is just to kind of get to the action phase, take the leap, do it so that you get the feedback, and then you can tighten up your aim and get better. But you don't really get better without actually taking the action. So the goal in life is not to attain some imaginary ideal. It is to find and fully use our gifts. And I think I would add, like, use our gifts to serve, right? I think that's really important, that there's a purpose and a service involved. And I think when you align that with what your gifts are, that's where things can feel really good. So you want to commit to exploring. I know that you are mostly like new dietitians or future dietitians. And so there's so much in your career that's unknown that you have to keep leaping over and over again. But I encourage you to keep leaping, keep taking leaps and trying new things. That's where I will get asked, like, what is your best advice for new dietitians? And I always say, if you can, like, depending on your situation, if you can, think about mashing together gigs, like consultant gigs and multiple different things, instead of just going right into like one full-time job, purely for the fact that you get more exposure to more areas and more skills and more types of jobs faster, so that you can more quickly filter through and decide what you like and don't like. Versus like you go to one job and you're only learning that one thing. Now, please, this is not for everyone, so disregard it if you're like, it's not going to work for me. But it is something that I would suggest, just to purely get feedback on how you feel in those jobs or in those types of businesses, so that you can keep learning about yourself and decide what it is that's a good fit for you. And that might take years to figure out. And it did take years for me. I was always hovering around sports dietetics, and I always had something going on in that. But then it was always like coming back to the businesses, which is why I kept doing different types of businesses, like the scrunchie business, obviously All Access Dietetics, Dietitian Social. I was constantly trying different models. Now I have the new practice. Now I already have another idea for the practice with the fellowship. So it's like you just keep learning and figuring out what was really good. And then finding mentors to help is important. And moving past your upper limit. So in this book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, he talks a lot about the upper limit. which I think is so important for the field of dietetics. I think we have a whole upper limit problem that we think that we can't go beyond, that we're like in this box, but it is such a lie, like, I mean, there's so many things that need to change about the field of dietetics. Like, I'll acknowledge that. But just in terms of the entrepreneurial business opportunities, we need to be like this fish that goes out and jumps into the much bigger like bowl, right? There is so much that we can do if we think outside the scope of like just the dietetics field and think about the bigger companies that we can have, the bigger impact we can have, just thinking bigger and taking that big leap. I like to say, like, trust fall yourself. Get used to that feeling. And this goes into that uncertainty, but just like falling back on yourself and knowing that you will figure it out and that you trust yourself. There's a lot of self-trust that can be built up by doing that over and over again. And that's what will make you a better business owner. They're like, it will get figured out. Even if it doesn't work out, you will figure it out because you have the skills, the strengths, and you trust yourself to do it. All right, if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, but hopefully this is resonating. And if you've even read any of these books before, let me know. But we have one more lesson here, and then I'm going to get into the business models of the 4 different like popular business models. So almost done with this section. Now, designing your life. So the biggest mistake that people make in life is not trying to make a living at doing what they enjoy most. You think about how you have so many options, even if you're like, oh, I definitely want to work with this population of people, right? Like, okay, I'm just going to make up sports nutrition because, that's just what like the population that I worked with. But there's so many different ways to work within sports, right? And so many job responsibilities. So your job is different if you're working for college athletes. It's different if you're working with professional athletes, different if you're part-time versus full-time with them. Private practice with sports nutrition athletes, brand consulting with sports nutrition supplements, speaking to teams, working for the Olympics. I mean, there's so many different ways, and then businesses around it. You could start your own protein drink company as a dietitian, or a supplement, or do sales for supplements, or be an influencer that's a sports dietitian that then makes money on the affiliate deals with these sports nutrition products, or does brand partnership deals. Like, you see that there's so many options. Just because you might like this one area of dietetics, you get to design the model, or like what you actually want to do and what you want to get better at. So you want to create that life filter. And this is something that can happen over years, but you want to think about your wants, your don't wants, identify those non-negotiables for you, and don't be afraid of the answers. I think so many people, especially with social media, they see influencers. I mean, I have never wanted to be an influencer ever. And it has been tempting because you look and you're like, why does this make me like think I should, or like maybe I should go into that world? But you have to identify what you want to do and not be afraid of the answers. And then adjust accordingly as you learn new things. So I remember as I was going through my sports journey, I remember once I got to around 2021 into 2022, when I was deciding, should I continue with sports? I remember thinking a few things. So number one, I really valued freedom of time. And I remember, working for a sports team, it was all based on the schedule. I had to work certain nights because of certain games, home games or whatever, certain practice days, on weekends, holidays. I had to be on call at night for catering when the team was on the road, and I had to manage the food service at the hotel or on the plane. And that didn't align with me personally, and especially like the stage that I was at in life, where I just didn't want that. And non-negotiable for me was freedom of time. And that was my personal one. Some people, that might not be important to them. And so, they might think there would be other values aligned there in that job that would make them really want to stick with it, and it would work with them. But it didn't for me. And I remember thinking, this is not aligned with my values of what I want. And so now I'm starting to get burnt out, and I don't want to continue growing in this area. So number one, you need to have the values figured out, and you can take a values quiz. Just type Google values quiz, and that will help you identify what your particular ones are. And then align that with the type of job that it is. And I think that's what you want to get to. Like I said, it could take years, but that is really important. And then finally, you want to ask yourself, do I want to keep growing? Like, did I want to become a better sports dietitian? Like when I ask myself that question. And the answer for me at that time in my life was no. I wanted to become a better business owner, leader, have a bigger business beyond my, niche business of helping future dietitians. I wanted to get bigger and help more people, with different problems. And so that is why I made that decision. And it's all about that self-reflection and understanding what your values are and then how these are aligning. I'm convinced that many people do not go through this exercise. And so then they think that the tension is burnout, but it's not the root cause, which is that you're not aligned with your values. So you have to know what they are and then get yourself into a spot where it aligns. For me, for example, again, you have your own values. Do not think that these should be what yours are. But for me, mine were balance, freedom, specifically freedom of time, health, health and wellness, and then impact and catalyzing. I love to make things happen and go, like with great systems and just go. So like I needed to make my business and my design of the model of my business align with those values. And then I don't feel burnt out and I could work, whenever I wanted on it, and I would never feel burnt out working hard on my business. Okay. So that's an example. The final lesson here, most of life is on the job training. Some of the most important things can only be learned in the process of doing them. You do something and you get feedback about what works and what doesn't. If you don't do anything for fear of doing it wrong, poor, or badly, you will never get any feedback, and therefore you never get to improve. So Jack Canfield, The Success Principles. It's a must read. And in that he quotes, I forgot who said the quote, but the quote is, feedback is the breakfast of champions. You want to get that feedback. Because even though like other people maybe have done it before you, like so many people have done a group private practice or a private practice with insurance like before me, but I am not going to learn. Like I talked to everyone. I interviewed like 30 group practice owners and like took notes on everything that they were telling me. I did not fully understand or learn those lessons until I did them myself, made those mistakes myself, and then got better because of it. And there's no like shortcut to that. So you want to do the things so that you get your particular feedback in your particular situation. And that's going to be the key to success, to whatever success looks like for you. And then this is what people think it looks like, just this straight line up, but you can see this is just not how it really looks. There's a lot of experimenting, a lot of, steps back, a lot of wrong, things that don't fit right or feel right, and you just figure it out as you go. All right, so that takes us about 45 minutes in, but that was the introduction into my entrepreneurial journey and then into the lessons learned. So I hope that helps and that you have a little winter break book list going. So hopefully you can get them from your library, whatever, Amazon, and learn even more lessons from there. All right. So now we're going to get into 4 business models, all 4 of which I didn't even realize this. So these are honestly slides from last year because I created it and it still works. But I realized this year, the 4 models that I am presenting to you, I've actually done. And I did not make that connection last year. So fun fact, I will talk through the pros and the considerations of each model and give you some examples and give you a resource for each one, a resource or kind of like an initiative that we're doing to help support people through these 4 different models. So we'll talk about the virtual assistant, digital marketing, the online business, so like courses, programs, something that's not really like one-on-one time, nutrition coaching, which I think about like, well, health and wellness coaching as well. So that would be like even as a student, like a pre-RD. and then into becoming an RD. And then private practice, I think more around either, I think about that with like owning your own private practice, whether that's private pay or insurance. I think about that a little bit differently than the nutrition coaching, partially just because only dietitians could do private practice and there's that insurance piece that's an option, but we'll get into kind of the nitty gritty of both of those. The virtual assistant digital marketing. So then I added in parentheses here, oh yeah, I did do that with Dietitian Social, even though it was quick. I think it from start to finish was like 6 months long of doing that, but we had clients, we were profitable. It's a great business model. COVID happened. I was really stressed and I didn't want to deal with it, honestly. So, but I remember 2 great hires out of that then joined the All Access Dietetics team. So it was a win. But here's the pros of this model. So the pros of this, one is you can help more clients than dietitians. So yes, you're a dietitian, but you can be helpful as a virtual assistant or marketing professional to anyone really in like the health related space, which is nice. It's flexible and remote. So if that's important to you, that's great. You do a lot of creative work, so creating social media or writing up scripts. And I think with ChatGPT now, this is even more incredible because you can get ChatGPT to give you like all these ideas, which can help your creative process. You have short-term and long-term clients. You can kind of choose, how do I want to work with my virtual assistant clients? Do I want it to be, as needed each week, or do I want to lock them into a contract and do like year-long contracts with people? And then your expertise as a dietitian or even a dietetic student is a selling point to potential clients. So that's great. And, if that resonates, amazing. So that's a huge opportunity right now. And then the considerations to think about is it may not feel dietetics related. You're kind of using your expertise in a secondary way as opposed to a primary way. And you must teach yourself new skills outside of your coursework. So learning so many skills. I mean, it depends on what you want to offer, but you might need to learn more social media marketing skills, email marketing, website, SEO, blogs. Like those are just some examples of a very long list of things you could help someone do. And then there's that constantly changing technology. But hey, if you ask yourself, do I want to get better at these things? Do I want to grow in these areas? And if the answer is yes, then that's a good thing. And that's going to help kind of propel you and keep you motivated because you're like, I just want to get better at this. Not compared to other people, but personally keep getting better. So that is the virtual assistant model. We partnered with Flourish Virtual Assistants, which Kat and Aaron founded it, but then Kat still runs it now. But they both made this course for the All Access Dietetics community called Make Money as a VA, a virtual assistant. And they did all these video trainings step by step on how to make your own VA practice or business. And you can also join their free Facebook group, and it's called Virtual Assistants for Dietitians. So Virtual Assistants for Dietitians, free Facebook group where they have even more free resources, but you can, I'll just drop the codes in here, or I'm sorry, the links in here. I'm just going to keep like copying and pasting all the links, but you'll see the one for Make Money as a VA course that you could check out, and you get 30% off with code website if you want to get that training. Oops. All right. So that was the VA model. And then, the second model is the online business where you're giving like courses or programs. It could be like group coaching maybe, but it's kind of like not the one-to-one, which I would consider more coaching in private practice. So my example here is, of course, All Access Dietetics. And the pros of this, so this business that I've had is scalable. So meaning we don't need a large team to run it. For example, like with Past Class, that would be our big program that we have. We have one tutor that runs the community, and then we have marketing, one person like Emily who does our marketing, who works on all the campaigns and email marketing and social media. And then we have our operations person, Susan, who handles all the shipments of the binder, past the exam prep, and all the customer service stuff behind the scenes. So things don't really feel different if we sell 2,000 or 5,000 past class programs every year. And that's really nice because you don't have to keep adding more people when you have something that like can scale like that without the need to keep increasing staff. So that is nice. And then there's high income potential as well, because again, it is so scalable. So your revenue goes up, but your overhead costs can stay pretty much the same. So that is a good thing as well. And then you can easily add offers to a trusted audience. I put that there because that is how we grew All Access Dietetics. So I had all these free resources and I do these events, and we just had admissions coaching up until 2019, like literally up the first 10 years of this business, we only had one offer, and the business was okay, like financially. It was, I mean, not that great, honestly. Like it was struggling. That's why I was like, okay, I got 2 years here. I'm trying to grow this. But then it turned that corner when we added more offerings to an audience that really trusted us. And we made RD exam prep, which is now the biggest offering that we have, like way more than admissions coaching, because we had this trusted audience. I remember talking to 500 students one-on-one to create that offer to design past class based on the feedback of 500 students. I would do 15-minute calls every week for like the first 9 months of 2019 to figure out how to make past class. And that's how we did it. And it was only because you all trusted me, you knew who I was, and you would book those calls. And I got so much great information so that I could create an amazing product, which then, was effective, did well, people loved, and now just continues to grow. So that's the great thing about starting a course or program type business, is that trust that you build with your audience when you're giving them that really good value. The considerations here would be you may need to do a lot of social media and content marketing to build trust, which is why we really grew when I brought on a full-time marketing person, like a full-time just dedicated to marketing to run that part of the business. And that was what was key to growing that, the past class and even the admissions coaching, growing that. The other thing to think about is one-on-one work is almost impossible if you are a true CEO. So if you really want to be a true CEO and you don't want to be as involved in the programs or the courses, like maybe you are in the creation of them, but there's no one-on-one work because you wouldn't have the time. There's so much that goes into the marketing in this type of business model that it would be very hard. It would slow down your growth. Lesson learned, I used to do one-on-one admissions coaching for our clients here, and I could never grow year after year because I was too busy coaching people and not having my coaches do that, and not spending my time growing my team and getting that strategy in place to increase our marketing and increase our offerings and make our offerings better. So that is where you'd want to think like, okay, my role would be different in this type of business model because it requires different skills to make it successful and grow. And you will burn out if you don't have well-run systems and team. And that's when you have to learn about management and leadership. And even if it's a small team, lots of systems that have to go into place. That was a huge part of my learning in the last 5 years. How do I actually have these great systems and team? And now we do, and it is possible to get there. But that is the key to making this model really work. So again, ask yourself, just like with the virtual assisting, are these problems things I want to get better at and that I want to grow at? And that's how you can start to reflect on if this is the right model for you. Then the resource that we have for this online business is our partnership with dietitian boss, Libby Rothschild. She created a course training for the All Access Dietetics community. The link is in the chat, and that's called Future Dietitian Boss, where she teaches you like the first steps of marketing and building an email list with a lead generator, and then giving that value first so that you can then sell to them from there. And so that's a great training, and it's 30% off with code website. We also dropped the price recently because we just wanted more people to get it. So you get an additional 30% off the lowered price with code website. So you can check that out if you're interested in the online business space. And her, what am I trying to say? Instagram is really helpful too. And she has a YouTube channel. So she's a great resource regardless for free info on that model. And she's specifically on that kind of like online business programs model. The third business model is nutrition coaching. So nutrition coaching, where I did this was mainly with the Chicago Bulls, where I was working one-on-one with players, but I also had done one-on-one on the side when I first became a dietitian, where I worked with the Chicago Blackhawks dietitian, but then I worked for their minor league team as well as the I see a good question here. I'm trying to okay, I'm going to take a timeout and take this question because it's a good one. So should I worry about damaging my brand/name by trying various businesses or jobs? No, I don't think so. I think as long as you have clear communication on, with the person that's hiring you or the project that you're taking on, and if you agree to that, and then you leave after, like for example, Chicago Bulls, like I left the Chicago Bulls, but I didn't leave in the middle of the season. I finished out my season and my contract for the season, and then I left. So I would say being mindful of what you've committed to. If it is like a contract related thing, having really clear communication when you do decide to leave and giving enough notice, and being professional about it, regardless, not burning any bridges or creating any negative relationships through that process. And then, yeah, otherwise, if anything, this helps you with your networking and with your own development of skills and exposure. So I don't know. That's my opinion. One person's opinion. Okay. So then getting back just to this nutrition coaching. So I have done the one-on-one, and I either worked for a private practice when I worked for the Chicago Blackhawks, but then I also saw clients on the side when I was working with the Chicago Bulls. The pro here is it's a way to test your interest in one-on-one. So if you're a student, it's a way to test your interest with the one-on-one without the RD, as long as you stay within your scope of practice. So I just got a question from Mary here who said, how do I set solid lines to not cross legally and ethically when working one-on-one with clients before becoming an RD? Look at the scope of practice that is defined for a registered dietitian and see what that scope of practice is. And then from there, I would say the like, I guess like what am I trying to say? Like the example that I would be looking at in terms of like what's quote allowed is I would be looking at the NBCHWC credential and look at what their scope of practice is, which I think is very similar to someone to like a general non-RD. And so that is, let me write that in the chat, nbhwc.org is the credentialing body that credentials then. The credential is NBCHWC, which is National Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach. I dug really deep into this because all of my dietitians are getting this NBCHWC credential. And what's interesting about it is it's very clear, like the health professional line where you cannot prescribe diets, you cannot give medical nutrition therapy, but you can coach people through behavior changes. And you can still be accountable, like hold them accountable. And you can provide general education, but you can't be prescriptive. And so I would just read the scope of practice for RDs. I would read the scope of practice for health coaches. And I would get very clear on that. So the problem in our world is obviously people are outside their scope of practice as health coaches or non-RDs. And that's a real bummer. But if you read those, you will see that there's a very clear distinguishment. What is the distinction? What's distinguishment? I don't know. Distinction between those two. So, but it is possible that to be legally, ethically within your lane and not going into the RD scope of practice. Then another question here, do you have recommendations for how much we should charge for nutrition coaching when we aren't RDs yet? I would just compare it to health coaches, and I would look up like health coach average hourly rate. I want to say I just saw this actually because someone just did a study on this, but it was like 45 to 60 an hour. And I'm just throwing out like from this study, that actually wasn't even, that was like the amount, oh no, that was for if they were in private practice. If they were not in private practice, if they were like health coaches working for someone, then it was lower, thankfully lower than a dietitian. Because that would be really bad, right? If they were getting paid more than dietitians, they are not. It would be like 23 to 20, $25 an hour if they were like working for someone. So I would not charge that. I would charge like the private practice rate for that. Okay. And you can charge higher. There's definitely coaches, health coaches out there that charge higher. So don't limit yourself, but just do some research. Maybe pretend like you're trying to go find a health coach in your area or on Instagram and you want to be a potential client, and just do that to 10 health coaches or nutrition coaches out there and get their pricing, and then see what the average would be, see what the market is for that, and pretend you're a client and go get that information. So you can start nutrition coaching anytime without the RD. And I just caution that it has to be where you're doing this legally and ethically, which is possible. And there is, of note, there is like this push with health and wellness coaching because they've determined that coaching is the best way for behavior modification in healthcare. And so they're trying to infuse that, even like the VA, like the Veterans Affairs, the government, federal government, hospital system for veterans is hiring NBC HWCs in their outpatient centers, and then RDs are actually managing them. So there's definitely a place for them in healthcare, and they're working on getting those health coaches services covered by insurance. I think that's a few years out still, but you can see that there's this like trend. And if you're on this path to become an RD anyways, and so that's amazing. And I think having the additional coaching certification can be helpful. But, I think that it's important to realize like it's an opportunity even as a student, and that it could be a good side hustle or gig or way to get you going and practicing before you can then add the MNT and your expertise as an RD. And that's why we teamed up, which I'll say on the next slide, but we teamed up with Well Coaches, who are like the gold standard in this NBC HWC credential training. The other pro here is that it can be a simple team with low overhead. If it is just like your one-on-one time, you might need a bookkeeper that can help with that, as well as maybe like a part-time assistant or something. But you could potentially have that be a very small team with low costs, which is nice. And the considerations, so if you do want to grow it beyond yourself, obviously you get to a certain point where you can only see so many people in a week. And if you're happy with that, amazing. Like I know so many solo private practice nutrition coaching owners, it's just them. That's awesome. But if you did want to grow it and you did want to, add people to your team, you have to keep that quality really high. So the thing you have to get better at is how you train people to have those skills and to retain their clients and get good results. You must have strong counseling and coaching skills because you need to get results. Clients will not stay with you if you do not provide an immense amount of value to them, especially if you are a cash practice, that's not insurance. Even with insurance, like have the group practice with insurance, we still have to do a really good job and help them get results and help them come back to their visits. So having that strong counseling and coaching background, which I say sort of interchangeably, coaching, counseling, same thing. But it's like understanding behavior change, motivational interviewing, going really deep into that, helping them get around resistance to change, and just having that value is really important. So, and there's training that goes along with it. It's not just about saying, good job, you did that. Like, it's actually not good to cheerlead your clients, but anyways, you learn about that in the coaching training. And then finally, you might need a niche or a very compelling specific offer, which may help you market to one pain point. That is something that could help. I know people have gone both ways with making it more broad, but it can help to, especially when you're starting, to help with one persona, one type of problem, and get like more clear on that so that you can kind of be that right fit for that audience. Okay. Now, the resource for that, so let's say you are interested, you're a student or you're a new dietitian and you just want to start nutrition coaching, one-on-one, private pay, like self-pay, you don't want to get in with insurance. So then in that case, one of my suggestions to you, if you have, obviously this would be like a paid thing or be covered by your insurance, but we invite future dietitians and new dietitians to experience the client side of our nutrition coaching program, which infuses the techniques of coaching psychology, and you get to see like the real world example of that, but be on the client side of that. And also, if you've never worked with a dietitian and you're about to become a dietitian, I would strongly suggest that you do that anyways, even one visit, so that you can be empathetic to the client side, like to actually experience being a client. I think is really important. And I don't know that they really do this in education as much. You might do some peer-to-peer counseling, so that's helpful. But if you've never had that, it's kind of like a cheat code to be like, okay, let me just go to a company that does this really well, see the intake process, see how we structure the visits, how we help you create change. We use our dietitian coach approach, and you can get that experience on that side. But insurance can cover the visits, but if you have Blue Cross, Blue Shield, or United Healthcare, otherwise we do a self-paid discount. Obviously, not for everyone if you don't have the means, of course, but if you do, it's a great opportunity to have that like learning experience working with a dietitian on the client side. So the application for that is on the All Access Dietitians website, and then I'll just drop the links again in there, and you can see it's called the Coaching Client Experience. And then there's a little application, then we sort of screen like make sure you're in the same state that because we only are in 19 states, so you have to be in one of the states that we're in. And then yeah, you can get started. Okay. And then, oops, hold on. I skipped a few here. Here we go. So that was All Access Dietitians. And now, just got a question from Andrea about taking insurance. Here we go with insurance with the private practice. So I'll stick a little bit more to the insurance-based private practice because, so in parentheses, All Access Dietitians, because I just started this group practice. I spent the last 2 years trying to figure out this world. It is complicated, and the hardest part is starting. I've never had something be so complicated and hard. And I think of myself as like, hey, I've run businesses before. Like I have good critical thinking skills, like blah, blah, blah. It is difficult, but it's not impossible. And it's only difficult because the learning curve is a little high, but 6 months, 1 year of just trudging through, figuring it out. And then it's like set, and you never have to think about those problems again. And you can just take care of your patients, grow your practice however you want. But no joke, it is hard in the first like 6 to 12 months. And then that's what every like private practice owner will say. So don't be afraid of that learning curve. And of course, if you start earlier, the better off, the quicker you'll get then to actually having that practice be sort of set and good to go. And of course, it is like even easier if it's just you, right, getting started. So certainly levels of difficulty here, but I kind of went in pretty hard and aggressive and like started right away with 4 full-time dietitians, and I was just CEO and I didn't see clients. So it's like kind of different for me. However, it's still a learning curve with this whole insurance piece. So let's get into it. The pros here is that the need is so high for insurance-based private practice dietitians, especially in specialties, diabetes, obesity medicine, eating disorders, food relationship. Oh my gosh, what else? Kidney, renal, or, same thing. Oncology, like the need is so high to have dietitians that take insurance available. And, it can be very scalable, or at least like not so hard to keep clients coming in the door when you have those solid referral sources. So I know some private practice dietitians, let's say they're just a solo, one person show, that they have relationships with like 3 doctor's offices that just continually send them people, and that's it. And it's just a running, flowing business, and they get to see their clients, and they get the stream of people coming in. They get paid really well. I can't say like it ranges from like you can get up like $100 up to like $150 an hour from insurance for this, which is incredible. But yeah, so it can be very scalable. and you have that big potential with taking insurance because there's less of a need to market. It's a different marketing plan. You want to think more about like referral sources and community connections and things, partnerships with people that could continually send you people versus like just like social media. Although social media you can absolutely do, but it's not, if you don't love social media, which I told you guys, like I don't love, I would never want to really be an influencer. I dabble in all of that. Like I'm just not a big social media person in general. So I like that I can market this by having relationships with physicians and therapists and healthcare providers. And that's how I can grow the practice. And then there is prevention visit coverage, which I talked about. A lot of dietitians do not know this, that there can be coverage for preventive visits. So it's not just like diabetes and renal. It can be anyone with certain plans. So I'm not saying that as like a blanket statement, but there is coverage out there that's really good for people and could be potentially, unlimited visits for them. And it depends on your state. It depends on the insurance company, but it's out there, it exists, and it's pretty exciting to be able to offer that for no cost to the patient out of pocket. Their insurance pays for it. You can also do telehealth with private practice, which would again get your overhead, your expenses lower, which is nice. But then the considerations are you probably will need support from a biller or an office manager. There's a great dietitian. Her name is Amy Plano, who is the reimbursement dietitian, and she's great for free resources. But then you might consider, like, I have a biller, so someone that helps me submit claims. Now, I have a larger practice, so if you were just a one-person show, again, you could do that on your own, but you would still need some sort of admin support to keep on top of everything. Then different states and insurance companies have different rules. So someone was asking, I think it was Andrea, like, what is it like to actually get in with insurance? So it depends on the states, but it is very clear like how to become a provider in those networks. And there's Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, Aetna, Cigna. I feel like there's one more, Humana, and then like Medicare would be the big six that you would want to try to get in with. And you could, right now, like for us, we're just in with Blue Cross and United because those have the best coverage for us in the state of Illinois, where I am. But you would just want to look at your state, think like, what are the most popular insurance companies in your state with the best coverage? And that's how you could think about doing it. So it's a process, and it could take 6 months to get in network. And then I know there's some states where they have closed networks where they're not allowing anyone in. So you do want to explore that. But there's a Facebook group called Insurance Credentialing and Billing for Dietitians that would be good to hop into, as well as a Facebook group, Dietitians in Private Practice, where you could start learning about all of this. And that's where I started. I started with those Facebook groups, reading posts, trying to understand the whole thing, and then having like interviews with group practice dietitians for like 9 months, just like constantly trying to have conversations to learn all this. Okay, so the Facebook groups were Dietitians in Private Practice, Insurance Credentialing and Billing for Dietitians. I think that's it, just those two. And then there is a Dietitians in Group Practice one, but it's a little bit more related to like managing a team, so it might not be as helpful. And then Amy Plano, who's the reimbursement dietitian. I think it's reimbursementdietitian.com, but Amy, Plano, she spoke at our RD2B Summit last year. Okay, I saw a bunch of questions come in, but I'm just going to finish this considerations and then I'm going to get to your questions. So you do need to have strong training systems in place if you do want to grow your team. And your time is limited. So just similar to the nutrition coaching, where you might do the self-pay, if you did want to go beyond yourself, then you would need to have your team to grow. Because of like the contracted rates that you get from insurance, you're never going to make more unless you then do add-ons. You could, do supplements, or you could do group coaching or something, or like some add-on services that could help increase your revenue per client. But otherwise, it's like pretty limited to just their visits, the amount of time traded for the hourly rate that you get from insurance companies. All right, I'm just going to scroll up to the top. So someone asked, Jelena, said, oh, she was referring to the, if you wanted to do the client experience with All Access Dietitians and be one of our clients, you have to be in one of the 19 states because you would actually be a client, and we can only see clients in those 19 states based on licensure laws in those states. So it's all based on like where you live. And that's just a licensure rule so that we don't get our license taken away as RDs. In your experience in the sports field, do you know if athletes may potentially be covered by insurance to see a dietitian? Yes, absolutely. We see active people at our practice and help them with their diet. And it's all, billed to their preventive side, not their medical side of their insurance, and totally legal and able to do that. So, yes. And then Andrea says, all you need is the RDN credential to start. Yes, like you have to be a dietitian in order to get in network with these insurance providers. But just know that it could take, up to 6 months until you actually have the effective contract where you can actually start billing. And there is a process to that. There's an application where they verify your credentials, and you'll need to register for an NPI number, all things that are, there's steps that you just follow. It's not like I always, people told me like just read the how-to on the website. People try to skip that. Read the how-to, read the manual on how to get a network, and it's all explained there. Right. Jordan asks, do you have to live in the state that you get insured in? Thinking in terms of if you work virtually, if that even matters. So you do have to have like an office space, but it can be like a, what am I trying to say? Like a rental, not WeWork is shutting down, but like some sort of like monthly fee that you pay for like a physical office space, even though you might not even use it. But if you're doing virtually, so like I have an office space, but we don't see anyone in that office, but I have to have it for the insurance contract. And so then you would have that in the state that you're getting contracted in. So I'm in Illinois, I have an office in Illinois, and then I have that contract. But what's nice is then you can still see people in those 19 states, but you just bill it through your home plan, which is for me is Illinois, and then they work it out with the benefits from there. So that's nice because like United Healthcare, for example, is like a nationwide insurance company. So that's why it can speak to all the different states. And then Blue Cross does the same thing with partnerships with different Blue Cross plans in different states. All right. So Faye, I guess just to answer, so thinking in terms of if you work virtually, yeah, it doesn't matter where you are, but you just have to follow the licensure laws. And then you're always going to be billing your home plan, which for me is Illinois, for you is wherever you have that, like where you say you're in, even though you don't have to be there physically. So there you go. Faye, does someone need to have an LLC before starting a private practice? Yes. You do have to have a business entity before you start the private practice. Allie asks, as a nutrition coach, are you only able to help people in the state you have your RD in? So if you're so you're an RD nutrition coach. So you're practicing MNT, you're practicing as a dietitian. In that case, you have to follow licensure laws, which are a little confusing, but there's like 10 states that don't have licensure laws. So it means that it's open virtually. Examples of that would be California, although you need a referral from a doctor, so that's a terrible example. You can see people in California because it's not a licensure state, but you have to get a referral if you want to work with insurance. You have to get a doctor's referral on file before you can work with that person through insurance. Okay, that's California. But another example would be like Colorado would be one that doesn't require licensure law. So you could see people in Colorado, and then there's like 8 more from there. So yeah, it can be more open, but you just have to follow licensure laws. So it's not really an insurance contract thing. It's more of you have a license in your state and you need to make sure that you follow the licensure laws in the states where your clients are. Oh, Andrea already has her LLC and an EIN, an employer identification number. So that's great. Yes, you will need that. Kaylee asks, how do I best go about finding laws and requirements I need to start a type of business? Maybe things I am not aware of through my network. Yeah, I would say those Facebook groups are really helpful. Um, and it is really confusing. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I was really conservative with where we decided to go. I know there's dietitians that just like I don't know what information they're going off of, but I was really conservative with what I read. And again, everything is like on there. The academy does have resources around licensure. Um, but then you do want to like dig in and potentially get legal advice. I mean, when you can afford it. I know getting a lawyer is expensive, but understanding employer law in your state is really important. And then perhaps that's through like your accountant as well. That would help you make sure that you have everything set up right. So yeah, it does require some professional consultation, accountant, lawyer to make sure you're good to go. And then another question here referencing your previous question about damaging a brand name. Can you speak more to changing a niche or type of business rather than type of job? I think what you mean here, I'm not sure if you're thinking like it will be weird to your audience. Like let's say you've built an audience on social media with this niche, but then you change it. That is tricky because you're going to lose people, but I think if this is what you mean, like that you would change niches within your business. Um, and to be honest, I have not fully done that because we haven't really like changed All Access Dietetics, offerings that we've just added to them, but it's still the same people that we're helping. So in that case, I would consider like starting a new platform, new marketing platform, new email list, and then inviting people from that other list and over to the other one. But don't expect that they would all come over because you're trying to go to different people. You're trying to speak to different people. Oh, wow. The questions are really coming in here. So let me make sure. All right, we have like 30 minutes left, but let me pause for a second. And Kaylee, if you want to rephrase that question if I didn't answer that quite right, feel free. But I'm going to pause on questions. I want to talk to you about our new dietitian coach approach training from Well Coaches. So that is the training that you can actually go the whole way to get the NBC HWC credential, or you can just do portions of it. So we have our team just do module one. And you'll see like on the page what that is. But this is very high level training. Like when I'm in the training, I did module one and then I'm finishing up the rest and getting the credential this spring. But there was like doctors from Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, like Harvard Medical School nursing, nurse practitioners, other dietitians from across the country, physical therapists, like really amazing, highly qualified healthcare professionals that were learning these very powerful skills. So when I think about the dietitian coach approach, it's like, okay, you learn how to be a dietitian, you know how to assess someone, you know how to do medical nutrition therapy and prescribe that, you know how to do personalized education based on all the different factors, like all those great things we were trained to do. We learn about motivational interviewing, but what is missing, I think, is how you actually guide someone without being that like expert, right? And not getting them into this like resistance to change, which is very easy to do. So in this training, you will improve your ability to actually help people change. And you want to close that gap, like they know what to do. Why aren't they doing it? And explore that with this like non-judgmental approach and avoid that cheerleading. I had mentioned that earlier where I was like actually like saying, good job, you ate breakfast this week, like isn't the best way to approach helping someone. And a really quick tip is like you kind of set them up to be reliant on your praise. And then when they don't do something, they don't even want to see you again because they don't want to disappoint you. So it sets up a terrible dynamic that reduces retention and gets people to fall off faster. So they are going to have those road bumps and like quote like failures, but like lessons. And if you position it differently and you don't just cheerlead them when they do something right, then you have a different relationship with them and they want to stay on with you because they want to explore why they did it wrong, that didn't do it instead of like being afraid to disappoint you. That's just a taste of like the approach that I think is so powerful. So you avoid prescribing then, and then you get out of like that expert mode that can be not as helpful in this type of relationship, especially if you want to have like weekly visits or every other week, which is what we do. And then you build up your self-efficacy, build up their self-efficacy and their competency in the client. There's strategic ways you use certain questions that you ask, ways of responding that help you do that. And then you set much smaller goals to fuel growth. So you're not handing them a meal plan. You're not saying, here's like the 20 changes that I think you should make. You're going really small and increasing their confidence throughout. And motivational interviewing, if you think like, oh yeah, so just do that, open-ended questions, try to be reflective, like that's just the tip of the iceberg of what you can do to really guide someone through behavior change that's sustainable. So that is why I'm so excited about this training and bringing it to future dietitians and dietitians, because it can be a game changer to help you help people better. And it could be even more incredible to actually have that early on in your career. Whereas I had this much later on, I probably could have been way more effective with my professional athlete clients than I was, because I didn't fully know all of these tactics to kind of get them to have better outcomes and to change in a way that felt good to them. And yeah, question real quick on the Well Coaches training, we did negotiate a discount. So it's $300 off on that training. And it is an investment. Like I'm not going to pretend, but it's like 28 CEUs as a dietitian. So it's really intense, and it's like 80 plus hours of training. So it's intense. And then if you keep going with the credential, it's like another 100 hours of training. So you learn a lot. And it's not just like, one-time training thing. It's like a full program. So that's why it's more of an investment, but it is going to like radically change your approach. So all of our dietitians do it, and it like increases their retention, and it allows them to have better relationships with their clients, and their clients want to come back. So we have less drop off, which is awesome and really important from a business standpoint. When you can retain your clients longer and help them, it's going to get you more referrals. It's going to make it easier to grow, because you're not going to have to keep finding new people every month. And yeah, it's just a good way to be more impactful. Okay, I am going to get to those questions, but I just want to get through this so we have more time, or don't run out of time, sorry. So the fellowship, because I only mentioned that, teased it, but this dietitian coach fellowship through the group practice, holy cow, I am so excited about this, because like I said, I want to create that fellowship 9 months or a year. I'm not like fully set on the exact time frame, but it will be for new dietitians, less than 2 years preferred. So I want you to have no experience like doing this, because I want to be able to give you that training. So you would actually do the dietitian coach approach training through this fellowship. It would be paid for through the fellowship. But if you have the NBC HWC credential now, like that's a plus too. But you would attend the training in Chicago, or you'd attend like the practice training, and then you would do the Well Coaches training on your own. But then you would be a full-time employee with the practice, with salary, paid time off, and we would place you with contracts where you could practice the coach approach like a lot and get a lot of reps, get exposure to diverse populations, and be able to really accelerate your growth as a dietitian coach, meaning like someone that infuses both their dietitian hat with their coach behavior change psychology hat. So excited. Email Jenny at allaccessdietitians.com if you are interested, if this is something you think could be a good fit for you. And the timing would be like spring, or starting like spring, summer of 2024 with a full-time employee position. All right. How many positions? It will be competitive at the beginning, but we will keep adding fellows as we keep adding more contracts. So right now it's looking like there'll be 3 to 5 in like spring, summer, and then by fall, winter, we should be able to add like 10 more. So super excited. And then we'll just keep adding more as we go. Right. Taking the big leap. So entrepreneurship's do's and don'ts. This is probably like 10 more minutes, and then I'll have 20 minutes for questions. So put any questions in the chat box because I'll just be reviewing them once I get through this section. I just want to make sure I shared everything that I had prepared for you. So thanks for going with me here. So entrepreneurship's do's and don'ts. So when you think about, okay, I'm actually going to do this, I'm actually going to become an entrepreneur and make this happen, take that first step, take that big leap. So what you do want to do is pay attention to feedback. I already told you about feedback. It's the breakfast of champions, but you want to pay attention to it, listen to it, adjust with it. And then aim for world-class results. So whenever you're doing something, especially when it's client facing, like, which is everything, any offering that you have, you want it to have create world-class results for people. And that might not happen right away, but that should be your goal, right? And that's what we did with past class. We were like, how do we get this to be the best RD exam prep? And it took us 2.5 years to actually get to that point, to have every offer and have every system figured out and everything in there, and then get the results that we really wanted people to have with doing that program. So, that's what you should be aiming for, that impact, doing really well, fulfilling the promise that you gave to that client. Know what you want. So know your values, know the things you want to grow at, and then understand your data. If you've never taken a business class before, learning about KPIs would be a really good thing for you. KPI stands for key performance indicators. So just even Googling or going to ChatGPT, like, what are KPIs? Explain to me how I use those in business. It'll give you a nice summary. Then have roadmaps for your month, for your quarter, for your year, for 3 years. A lot of planning, a lot of forward thinking with entrepreneurs. So you want to be really clear what your vision is for the business and all the different milestones you need to have in order to make it happen. And then do not ignore financial models. I did ignore financial models for the first 9 years of All Access Dietetics because I didn't know what I was doing. So I have to tell you, you want to understand how to create a financial model. And another term would be a pro forma. It's called PRO and then FORMA. And that you can look at examples online, but you have to be able to put in, okay, here's all my expenses. Here's the costs of everything. Here's what the revenue would be. Here's what my profit would be, and know those numbers before you get into it, and then adjust them as you go. So I had a financial model for the practice. And then now as we go, I can actually see the actual expenses, the actual revenue, the actual profit from my accounting software, and I can start to adjust my model and make sure that it's still profitable. You don't just want to be like, oh, do I have money in the bank at the end of the month? Great. That's not how you want to do it. That is how I did it for the first 9 years. I do not recommend it. And it's not a way to grow because you don't have the numbers to help guide you. And then don't forget your mission. Don't forget your mission about why you're doing something, the bigger picture. And then stay busy. Don't stay busy, but not productive. There's a great book called The One Thing. And it's like, what's the one thing I can do today that would make something else unnecessary? And so that's your way of thinking about, like, am I moving the company forward? Am I doing something that makes something else easier or not even needed? That would be a lot of systems creation or hiring someone or training someone on something, like things that are going to actually produce forward movement in your company, not just to stay busy. And then don't do everything and not delegate. So I mentioned how there were considerations in every business model where it might require more people if you want to grow. So you do want to think about, am I comfortable with that? If not, no worries. Just know that that's a certain type of model and a certain type of financial model. And so that's just what you want to be aware of. It's certainly possible. Like I said, you could do a private practice just yourself, and you might just need a part-time biller and someone to, maybe like an accountant to help you on the side. And just a really quick question here. How do you build up enough money to use to start a business? Yeah, speaking of the financials, so yeah, I would say very realistically, it could be, it totally depends on your model, but like for a private practice, insurance-based private practice, it could be a startup of like 5,000 to $10,000, which you're like, oh my God, it's an investment. It's scary. And not everyone can have that, right? Like you can take maybe a business credit card out. That's also scary. So I used personally like savings for that. But I would say that you it would be about just having a plan, and maybe you can't do it right now, but having a plan and like roadmap for when you could do it. And it's just all about looking at your own personal finances, going through the financial model so that you have a very clear picture. Here's what I would need for, the first 6 months, assuming that you might not, profit or have like revenue right away. And that would be the way to do it. And then don't give up. That's the final don't. Don't give up because it's this like very sharp incline up, but then you like plateau and you stay up there because you figured everything out. And there'll always still be like challenges and things, but the hardest part is that first 6 to 12 months. Once you get past that, oh my gosh, it's awesome. And then you can look back down and be like, look at how far, even to get to like a year is incredible as a business owner. So it's just getting through that year, maybe two, to get it to where you really want it. But like that's the trajectory you have to be okay with, not seeing a lot of success with, as long as you're like doing the right things and moving forward. Okay. All right. And then some qualities that you would be wanting to get better at. So think, oh, I'm not sure if I want to be an entrepreneur. Here are the things that you would want to focus on to be a good entrepreneur, and think about, do I want to get better? So to problem solver, you want to be a problem solver. You want to be fearless, not really like an absence of fear. Actually, it's more so like a tolerance of fear, like being okay with the fear that you're feeling, and doing it anyways. A clear life vision, at least for in the moment that you're at. Obviously, your life vision changes as you keep going and keep getting more feedback, but in that moment, you have a sense of a vision. Self-motivation is huge. Being able to intrinsically be motivated, not externally motivated. So externally motivated might be like, I want to have the car and the house and the whatever, this lifestyle. Like that's going to be a harder motivator than an intrinsic motivation around the people that you want to serve, the purpose you want, and the growth that you want to have as a person, as an entrepreneur. That's going to fuel you much more and make it a lot easier, rather than some external, even like money. You want to have money goals, but it can't be like the only thing. It can't even be the primary thing. It has to be more about your purpose and why you're doing this for yourself first, and how you're growing as a person. And then from there, it kind of expands out to who you want to help and serve. You want to be a good communicator. I've had to have a lot of tough conversations as a business owner in terms of having to let go of people, communicating expectations, making big changes in a business that would affect people, and then, not know how that would be received. And then the next would be balance, so avoiding burning out and making sure that you're finding the balance and aligning everything with your vision as best as you can. And then finally, a mix of being a detail-oriented person and a big picture thinker, I think, is very important, because you have to get down to the data and details with finances and marketing numbers and things like that. But you also have to have that bigger picture thinking around like the offer that you have and who you want to help and how you're going to do that. All right, final thing here. So taking the first steps, because I saw a question about what are the types of startup costs. So planning the financials is important. The concept of setting goals and bringing objectiveness to decisions. So, and actually these 3 steps were from my business advisor, who I learned a lot from. Actually, they do have a lot of free resources on their website, so I will drop them in. Unfortunately, they only work with people that are like 3 to 5 years into their business, so they wouldn't be a good fit for anyone here, if you guys are, I'm assuming, are all new or haven't started yet. So they do have these CEO webinars though, that I think would be really good, that there's some on financials that would help you with that and creating that financial model. And then creating consistent leads. So thinking about like, how do you make sure new business is coming in consistently? For my practice, we have a LinkedIn strategy that allows me to get on those calls and to do that. And then we do Google ads. That's just like, for me, that might not be a fit for you. But what are the ways that you can consistently tell people about your business? And then finally, that priority management. So thinking, how do you make sure you go into each week organized? I love block schedules. That's a key to success for me. But those are like the big three. Like, what's the money situation? How am I actually going to get people? And then how do I structure my day and time? And I know that's very like vague, and I'm not giving you the exact, like, here's what to do. But even thinking about that and then diving deeper into it is going to get you far and away ahead of the typical entrepreneur who doesn't even think about those things. So those are the big three. To think about. And then there is a book, it's called $100 Million Offers and then $100 Million Leads, both by Alex Hormozy, that I think you would find super interesting and would tell you about like how to get the leads, but also how to think about like your offer of what you're giving out there. All right. Oh, we made it to Q&A. Okay, the timing's pretty good. We have 17 minutes. I'm going to do my best. And again, this is recorded if anyone has to leave or anything, but I'm going to go through some questions. And we'll keep these resources up on here, all the ones that we talked about, which was the dietitian coach approach training from Well Coaches, Make Money as a VA course, if that's the model that you were most drawn to, the future dietitian boss training for the online business and starting that whole world. And that has a lot to do with how you're going to get leads with that lead generator training. And then we talked about 2 opportunities with my group practice. One is being an actual client so that you can experience how the dietitian coach approach is used, what our intake forms look like what the process is on the client side. And you can experience that and could be covered by insurance or the self-pay discount for RD2Bs. And then finally, the dietitian coach fellowship, which I'm so excited about for spring/summer, and more details are going to be coming out this in the new year. But you can also email me, Jenny at allaccessdietitians.com, if you want any more information on that. Okay. I hope my voice holds out here for a few more handfuls of questions, but I'm so excited to dive into your questions. And if anyone has to leave, feel free. But thank you to those live for coming and sharing the questions. And then for those of you listening to the recording. So always appreciate a good live event and to connect with you all. So I'm going to scroll up and start answering these questions. Let's see. All right. Here we go. So someone asked, is there such a thing as an international license? And no, if there's no like reciprocity, you still have to take the RD exam in the US if you are credentialed in another state. Okay. And then let's see. Oh yeah, maybe All Access can start a new course to understand the insurance laws and licensure details to launch. So we will be covering that in the Dietitian Coach Fellowship for sure, because we want to help people like launch their private practice right after, if they leave, after the 9 months or a year. But Amy Plano has a great course and resources for that. So for right now, that's a great spot. All right, I started a page on social media that I'm currently posting recipes on to gain exposure until I'm an RDN. I'm finding it hard to find a specific niche after my internship, but want to be a successful CEO. How can I best navigate this? So Natalie, your question, you might start with who you've had the most exposure to as a student. So, or just start with one area and test it out, or someone like you. And I know there's like a lot of different things, but I know that some like 20 something, like being like, okay, sorry, I'm not explaining this well. So being like a nutrition coach to graduate students, like busy graduate students or busy female graduate students in healthcare professions, like kind of who you might be. I'm just assuming, I don't know you at all. So, but if that's who you are, that's your niche then, is who you are, because you can relate to that and you can apply what you've learned to your own life and then how you can help other people apply it to their lives. So that would be one example, or someone that you've had exposure to or a certain population that you can then just learn and learn as you go, as you get, like, let's say it's cardiac health, you get your first 5 people and you learn as you go. And maybe this is talked about in the $100 million offers book, but he talks about just starting for free with 5 people that you could do coaching on, and then learn from those 5 and then start to increase your price as you go. But that would be a thought to try to find that. Is this new credentialing acknowledged by A&D? So I think you're speaking to the NBC HWC. Yes, I mean, RDs get the NBC HWC. So definitely an accredited credential. And it is, like I said, being recognized by health insurance, which is huge, and like Medicare. So yeah, it's totally legit. I would say some programs, like I kind of struggle with some of the programs that are accredited that I don't think are amazing, but that's why we chose Well Coaches, because we think that's the best one. But you have things like Institute for Integrative Nutrition in there. You have Precision Nutrition, ones where we're kind of like, it's a lot of like nutrition information, whereas Well Coaches is more on the coaching, because they assume you're a healthcare provider that already has background on all of that. So that's why we like that. All right. Trying to get to how long will we have to go to Illinois for the fellowship? It's just 3 days as of right now. That's the details, where you have to be like on site, but then otherwise it's remote from there. Okay, I'm seeing some thank yous. And then what do you see as the biggest need in our field going forward for about 5 years? Biggest need, I mean, we just need more dietitians becoming dietitian, or more people becoming dietitians. We're seeing, like, because of that master's degree and the inaccessibility, that's hurting our profession. And I do think we're so small as a profession that's really hard, because it's kind of a numbers game, especially to do lobbying and to make changes with medical nutrition therapy laws that exist. So I think the biggest need is recruiting more people to the field. And I understand, to do that, we have to show that you can make more money as a dietitian. And so that's why I started the group practice with insurance, because I want more dietitians, especially like brand new dietitians, to get into jobs where and even private practice, or even working for a private practice, where you can make more like $50 an hour instead of this like $29 an hour average for entry level. So we have to show that we can make more earlier on in our career as a dietitian, to better justify the higher increase in the education that we need to pay for. And of course, I don't even love the master's requirement anyways, but like, we won't get in there. I just think, yeah, we're going to have to figure out a different PR plan for dietitians and getting people to become them. And it has to do with them making more money. So that's what needs to happen. And I think one path is getting more people into private practice and getting in with insurance as well. Joella says, is there such a thing? Oh, okay. We already answered the international thing. Kaylee, is the dietitian coach approach something you would do before starting a business, or would it also be beneficial if you didn't have a current clients to implement what you are learning? Either one. I think like you could get it. I know there's like dietetics programs that actually include the NBC HWC curriculum in their DPD or like in their undergrad. So you absolutely could do it without being a practicing dietitian. But that's why we want to do the fellowship kind of at the same time, where you can like learn and then practice the coaching that you just learned. So kind of like an internship, but it's called the fellowship. So I would say either way. I'd say you'd benefit either way. So, and it doesn't matter like when in your journey that you do it. I would just say earlier, the better. All right. I think we're coming down to the final questions here. Who is eligible for the fellowship? Dietitians that are 0 to 2 years into their career. And then Amber here, oh, she's just putting, oh, people are dropping their Instagram. So that's awesome. Oh, and we have some established dietitians, which is great in the crew. And then, oh, here's a question. Why is a dietitian why do they always need a doctor? That's not the case anymore. We don't need referrals for seeing dietitian or seeing clients in our practice, which is nice. So definitely don't need the doctor. Just a couple states require that. Like I mentioned, California does, but otherwise, yeah, we don't need referrals or doctors involved. Although we do want to be involved with the doctors and share progress notes and things, but yeah, it's not a requirement for patients to see us, which is great. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up here because my voice, I need a sip of water. We did it. We did it. We got to just under the hour. Thank you so much for being here, especially those that stuck around to the end with the questions. I hope that helps. I'm going to drop the links in one more time, just so you have all the different resources we talked about. But this concludes the 2023 Business Boot Camp. Super glad you were all here and listening to this. I hope you found it helpful. Love talking about the entrepreneurial journey. Want to just give you the real talk, give you the stories, give you my best advice that I could give in 2 hours. I know it's like a very short amount of time and we didn't get into a ton of specifics on like financials and things like that, but it got you started and gave you a lot of resources. So take action on the things that you just learned. I said you have to take action so you can get the feedback so that you can learn. Take action. Don't just, wrap this up and not do anything with this new information. So hope it helps, and hope to maybe work with you with the dietitian coach approach or with the coaching client experience or the dietitian coach fellowship or any of the trainings, and reach out Jenny at All Access Dietitians or Jenny at allaccessdietetics.com if you have any questions. I hope you all have a great rest of your night, great holiday break if that's what you're on right now, and looking forward to connecting with you at a future event. So have a good night, everyone. I am going to close down the meeting. Bye.